Senator Robert Menendez guilty on all counts, 16 of 16 counts at his federal corruption trial, a sprawling bribery case that now represents a huge fall for a man who held one of the most powerful positions in the U.S. Senate. Menendez and his two trial co-defendants, a New Jersey businessman, could face decades in prison if they are convicted after prosecutors proved to the satisfaction of the 6 men and 6 women on this jury that the senator accepted cash, gold bars, and a Mercedes-Benz convertible in exchange for official favors. Joining me now, former SDNY Criminal Division Deputy Chief and MSNBC legal analyst Christy Greenberg, former federal prosecutor Glenn Kirshner, former prosecutor and MSNBC legal analyst Charles Coleman. Charles, guilty 16 times.
Indeed.
Guilty as well. The prosecutors proved their case across the board for the other co-defendants. What do you make of this verdict?
Well, Chris, there's a reason that the federal government has such an immaculate record when it comes to prosecuting cases. They usually do not take shots that they cannot make. And in this case, you saw they went for everything that they had and they got the convictions that they expected to get. Federal prosecutions have an enormously high conviction rate because very few of them go to trial, simply because most defendants know and understand that they do not have a good chance of winning at trial. Senator Menendez took the chance in this case, and he went up against the evidence that the DOJ had, and he lost. And that's just as simple as it was. The prosecution had a very strong case with the amount of physical evidence that they were able to put forth. They put forth a very solid case, and it's not a surprise to me that they ended up getting the verdict that they did. The fact that the jury deliberated as long as they did is a curious matter to me, but I think that that could be a number of different things, including the different defendants, the different charges, and whether they were going to find each defendant guilty of all of the charges on the indictment. But ultimately, this shapes out the way that I would expect. When the federal government decides to bring a case, when they decide to go to trial, it's because they believe very strongly that they can win, and they often do, and we see that that's what happened here.
Let me go back to Tom Winter. Tom, you have followed this case as closely as anyone. There is the legal aspect of it, but also there are two other parts of this that drew a lot of attention. Obviously, the fact we've mentioned, he was an incredibly powerful New Jersey senator who had once before gone on trial, and it was a hung jury, but also just the details of this case, that they executed a search warrant and they find money and they find gold bars and they find them stuff in clothing and boxes and a safe. Talk about this case, the strength of this case, and the challenges that faced the defense.
I'll get to that in just a second if I can, Chris. We are getting some color and some new information from our colleague Adam Reese, who's viewing the proceedings. The clerk is currently reading the verdict form back, but apparently Menendez has his chin resting on his clasped hands. Attorneys are upset, and apparently his family, the senator's family, is wiping tears from their eyes. Again, this is all according to our colleague Adam Reese. The jury has been polled, confirmed their verdict. That's when the judge turns to each individual juror and says, is this in fact the verdict that you came to? The judge is now reading from the bench saying your duty is now complete and is thanking the jury for their time. Obviously a 2-month plus trial here, 12 and a half hours of deliberations. Speaking to the evidence that the jury witnessed, Chris, as we've been talking over the past several weeks in this case, the New York field office of the FBI, the largest field office of the FBI in this country, had to call in additional agents because of the amount of cash and the amount of things that they were finding at the Menendez home. They needed to call in one of those cash counters, the types of things that we see in movies and bank robbery movies and in all sorts of other types of films where they put the stacks of cash in and count them up. Nearly $500,000 in cash. You're looking at some of the individual bills that were found during the course of the search. Obviously, the gold bars that we're looking at now, the evidence against the senator, particularly damning when he looked up the price of a gold bars after within days of allegedly receiving them, now no longer allegedly. And on top of that, the evidence of the conduct here. A United States senator, the senior senator from New Jersey, the powerful chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. This is the committee that determines the type of support that our allies, or maybe not so much allies, receive from the United States. Billions of dollars to help advance our interests and their interests when they're aligned, that he was apparently working on behalf of Egypt. And I'm using old language, not apparently. In fact, the jury says he was working on behalf of them when he fed information about the amount of diplomats that were at the U.S. Embassy in Cairo. And you might be sitting there and saying, well, who cares how many diplomats are at the U.S. Embassy in Cairo? But if you were a foreign government, and I'm going to remove Cairo from the example and Egypt from the example for a second. If you were a foreign government and you knew, just for sake of conversation, the U.S. assigned 100 diplomats to a particular embassy, and they put them in 5 apartment buildings, and you conducted surveillance, and you can bet that these foreign governments do, who's coming in and out, who's associated with those diplomats, and you counted, say, only 90 in that building, then you would, in those 5 buildings, you would want to know where the other 10 diplomats are, because are they working for the U.S. intelligence services? Why are they not staying where all the rest of the diplomats are? What is the U.S. up to? Are they taking secret meetings with people in our country? It is potentially very damning information, or very, I would say, challenging information for the U.S. In keeping our people abroad. So that's one of the things that stuck out to prosecutors. That's something that they really hammered home in their closings and in their rebuttal as we've been listening to those proceedings over the past week or so. And this jury came to the conclusion that, in fact, it was the senator that did those things. We're getting more information from the court, and then I'll send it back to you. The judge has asked for all parties to be seated. He has set a sentencing date for October 29th at 2 p.m. For one of the New Jersey businessmen who's been charged here, Wael Hana. 2:45 for Fred Davies. He's a developer. And then the sentencing date for Senator Robert Menendez will be October 29th at 3:30 p.m. Right now, they're going through what the various bond and detention orders are. We're not getting anything new as it pertains to the senator, and some of this is some material pertaining to the other defendants. So I'm going to send it back to you, Chris, until we get more information about that. But again, the news that's coming out of the proceeding now is that the sentencing date for Senator Robert Menendez will be October 29th at 3:30 p.m., and obviously that's before the election. Chris.
Thanks so much for that. Just raise your hand to our control room when you get more information from inside that courtroom. But let me go to you, Glenn, because we now have the sentencing date, October 29th, 3:30. For right now, though, would you expect the prosecution team to oppose bond in the meantime?
You know, ordinarily when charges this significant, and it includes convictions for not only criminal conduct, but for obstructing justice, trying to cover up, trying to misdirect, trying to get away with your crimes and committing more crimes in the process. I mean, that poses a potential risk if somebody is put on release pending sentencing. But what I will say, Chris, is ordinarily, you know, I've seen what I would refer to as a disparity in largely white-collar cases where defendants are allowed to remain on release pending sentencing, whereas, you know, if they're not sort of, you know, privileged, connected, influential, and wealthy, they are often remanded to custody after a really dramatic series of guilty verdicts like that. So it's an open question as to whether the prosecutors will ask that he be remanded or step back pending sentencing. But I was furiously writing down the numbers, the exposure that he has as Tom Winters was reading off the verdicts. And I think by the time we hit the 11th or 12th guilty verdict, he was already facing in excess of 100 years in prison. Now, as Tom mentioned, that's the statutory max. Obviously, the federal voluntary sentencing guidelines will come in significantly lower. However, based on this clean sweep of guilty verdicts, I would expect the prosecutors to ask for a fairly lengthy jail term for Senator Menendez.
So, Christy Greenberg, what happens between now and that sentencing date? What are both sides working on, and the judge?
Well, so the next step in this process is that there will be an interview from the probation office of Senator Menendez. and the probation officer will then prepare a report. That report will include a summary of the offense conduct, as well as information personally supplied by Senator Menendez to provide a more complete picture of who he is, his background, his family connections, his health, just anything that he thinks could potentially be helpful, because ultimately that probation officer will make a recommendation about sentencing. Both the prosecutors and the defense will look at that recommendation and have the benefit of that report, which is confidential to the public, but both parties will get it. They will look at it and then determine what sentence they seek to recommend. Obviously, you're expecting Senator Menendez's team to ask for no jail time. I will say that I've worked with these prosecutors. These are among the best public corruption prosecutors in the country, and they are aggressive. So I will expect, based on their participation in past public corruption cases at SDNY, that they will be seeking jail time for Senator Menendez.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.